Hey everybody, DFJ Woodworking here. Going to be bringing you a video about unboxing, assembly, and a couple first cuts and first impressions of the RIKON 10-305 10-inch bandsaw. Got this sort of as a birthday gift after doing some research for a great price. You'll hear about it a little bit later on. But now I've got it all set up, run some wood through it. We'll kick off the video with a little bit of description, unboxing, thoughts behind why I got it, and get into the meat of the video. I hope you all enjoy. Let's get to it. Welcome everyone to the channel. This is going to be meant for amateur woodworkers and woodworkers of all sorts that come across these videos. Hopefully it'll be something helpful. I plan on making videos about some of the small projects I make, some of the unboxing of tools that I use, why I use tools, reviews of the tools that I might be using. None of it's sponsored. I'm obviously very new to this and very much an amateur. But I want to start off this first video with one of my nicest tools, we could say, that I've ever bought. I've inherited a lot of tools. I've gotten a lot of cheap tools to kind of get myself off the ground. As you can see, this is my shed. It's an 8x10 shed. This is where I work. I have very little room in here, so I make the most use out of it that I can. So I inherit things like this cheap Craftsman drill press that I'm going to have over here, very cheap lathe, a very cheap lunchbox planer. I have a radial arm saw that takes up a massive amount of room, but is inherited from 2 or 3 generations of my family, so I use that. But recently I've come across the need to have some sort of bandsaw, and I did some research and I was looking around, and I originally was going to go with some sort of big box store budget brand 9-inch bandsaw, but I wanted to do my due diligence, and I knew I couldn't afford a big 14-inch bandsaw. I didn't have the space, I didn't have the money for it, but I also wanted something that would last a little bit, and I kept my eye on this. This is the RIKON 10-305. It's a 10-inch bandsaw with about a 1/3 horsepower to it. It can accommodate from an 1/8 inch to up to a 1/2 inch blade, and it was around $500. It kind of hovered there, and I thought that was a little pricey for what it was, considering I could get 1/2 horsepower 10-inch bandsaws from RIKON and Jet as well. And then it just so happened that my local Menards, well, Menards in general, had them on sale from $4.99 to $2.99 plus the 11% rebate. So I got this after the 11% rebate. It'll be about $270, and that wasn't much more than one of the big box store brands. And I figured it might have a little bit more longevity and power and capability to it. So here it is. I'm going to unbox it. I'm going to put it together. I'll kind of give some specs. And then at some point I will put it through a couple different tests, and we'll see how it goes. It's my first bandsaw. My dad has a very small, cheap 9-inch Craftsman bandsaw that I used to use way back when I made things like Pinewood Derby cars with him when I was a kid. But it's still in his shop. I could have waited for something like that, but I don't want to take tools from him that he's going to use, and I hope that he's got much more life ahead of him so that he continues to use them for a while. I'd rather not inherit them if that's going to be the case. So I'm going to go through and unbox this. I'm pretty excited about it. I think I got a great deal on it. Maybe you guys can tell me if I did not get a good deal, but I'm pretty sure I did, and it leaves a lot of room for improvement. But it also should hopefully get me through the projects I do, like the small things I turn, cutting blanks, cutting down some stock to get some blank material out of it, helping me with a little bit of light resawing, maybe some more intricate things. I try to make some mounts based on some plans I found from a few people, including 731 WordWorks. I'll tag him in the description. You should check his stuff out. He's great for beginner to advanced woodworkers. He started from very little and has worked his way up, and I appreciate watching his stuff. So, but it leaves some room. He has a bigger RIKON. This is gonna take up a pretty good chunk of my 8x10 shed, but not as much as a 14-inch would. So let's get into it. Like I said, I'll pull up some specs here, but it's the RIKON 10-305. It's a 10-inch bandsaw. It has about a 1/3 horsepower. It runs off 3.5 amps. It's got a cast iron table, which I thought was nice. We'll check the levelness and see how that is, how flat it actually is. It has a 4 5/8 inch resaw capacity, which is actually pretty generous considering like the price range and the size it is. I doubt it. I'm skeptical that it doesn't struggle against some of the harder woods, but Sorry about that. I was going through some stuff. Baby needed some more formula to go to bed, so that's another challenge of the amateur woodworking and kind of the phase of life I'm in. I've got a almost 3-year-old and a 10-month-old, and they take up lots of time, so I don't get a ton of time out in the shed like I'd like, but I kind of find space where I can. Right now I'm recording this at night. I've run enough electrical to the shed to get a light in here, and I'm doing this now after they're asleep, although they weren't. But anyway, I'll get back into it. So I was starting to say that I was going to have some skepticism about how hard the wood could be that could resaw, you know, over 4.5 inches. But we'll give it a shot and see what happens. I don't really plan on doing that frequently. I'm more using it for trimming up, cutting smaller, thinner sections. So we'll see. It's got a 2-inch fence. Haven't read much about the fence, but not so worried about the fence for my purposes. I'm not hoping for super accurate cuts. I'll make do with what I can. I can pull out a ruler and make sure things are as straight as possible and as 90 as possible when needed. It's got a 2.5-inch dust port. I should have one around here somewhere, but I do have a 4-inch dust port on a Rockler Dust Right collection system, kind of wall mount, dust mount system. So I'll have to get an adapter for that, but I tested a couple out. Should be no problem. I've done that with some of my other smaller tools. And that's pretty much the main things. So we'll kind of get into it. Since it's a 10-inch model, that means I can fit material up to 10 inches from the blade to the throat. It's about 9 5/8 as I think when you actually measure it out. But that should be fine. I don't really plan on doing giant projects on this. I shouldn't, which is a 10-inch bandsaw. So let's get into taking stuff out of the box and see how it's packaged. I did slit the top and take a quick look. Things look to be clean and in order, and we'll go from there. So, pretty solid box, pretty solid packaging. Right out of the top of the box, right on the top of the foam, it looks like we've got, I see slide rules, so this looks like it's what the fence will ride on. Feels pretty solid. I'll check with a straight edge, see how straight that is. But again, with the fence, I'm not too worried about it. Again, I'm an amateur. I don't do this a lot. I don't have a bandsaw already, so I'm just hoping that this gives me some added capability in the shop that I didn't have in the past. This foam. I did pull out the operator's manual that I will grab. Oh man. Showing this loose. There we go. It's good. Tight package. Okay. Alright. Like I said, I've already pulled out the operator's manual. So we'll get into this to see how to put it together once it comes to that. The other thing is about this is a 5-year warranty on it. That's pretty nice. I mean, I'd have to look into exactly what comes with it, what they cover, what parts they cover, what not. But you know, I don't plan on beating it up too much, but it's kind of peace of mind. RIKON, I think, has pretty decent reputation for some of their tool brands. I know their larger table saws are fairly well respected. Seen a couple of the YouTubers out there that I've followed throughout the last couple years using them. So I have faith that they build that into this smaller one, and that I'm going to benefit from that as well. So let's take it out of the box and see how sturdy we really think she is. Alright, so packaged in a couple different slots here. Oh, that's heavy. That is solid. Cast iron tabletop as opposed to some sort of aluminum. Should hopefully add some flatness, some rigidity, some sturdiness. It definitely adds some weight. That is heavy. So that's kind of one of those things that came with this saw that some of the cheaper ones didn't. And I thought it was nice to kind of get back close to that price range and still get something like this with that sale. Benefits of a radial arm saw: I store a lot of crap on it, so you know that's always good. And it definitely oiled that up for me, so there's definitely plenty of some grease protecting that tabletop. All right. I want to pull out the most exciting part, but I'm going to try to get everything else out first. Here's the fence. Feels a little cheap. That's okay. Like I said, I'm not going to get too worked up over the fence and what it's made of, its squareness, all those types of things. I'll follow the instructions and see how square and true we can get this in the first place and how much it stays like that. But what else do we have? Looks like a couple different knobs, Allen keys, things like that. Maybe some replacements because it looks like some of the same ones that are on here. But some of them I'm sure are to affix the fence, or sorry, the table and for table adjustments. Okay, let's see. And then really the main piece, I don't see much else in here. So let's pull it out, see what we've got. Hopefully in order to give you all some context of my shop, I'll do a quick shop tour, which should take approximately 2 minutes. Because I can spin around and almost touch all the walls with my bare hands from the middle. So let's turn this around and get a better view of it. There we go. Slide this back on the table. You're working at a small shop, portable surfaces are your friends. I am working on a Black & Decker, super cheap Workmate 125 folding adjustable top. Works as clamps. It's got some basic, very basic dog holes in it. But I've literally set up all sorts of stuff on here. I sand on here. I used to set up my miter saw on here. My really cheap, super old miter saw, which you'll see in the shop tour at some point. It does what I need it to do. I'd love to have a big sturdy workbench, and at some point when I move, get a bunch of room, I plan on building one for the middle of a workshop. But for now, this will do. This is more workspace than I've ever had of my own, so I relish it. I just have to store some kids' toys in here, so it takes up some room. I threw them out of here for the purposes of this video. Don't think you need the duck pool in the background of the unboxing. So let's see what we've got. Let's scoot it over. The instructions. So right off the bat, I mean, it's clean. No scratches, no major dents or anything like that. No dents at all. Feels like it's made of sturdy materials. The blade's already installed. We'll probably make sure the bearings and everything are set a little bit more close to the blade, so that we have a little bit more guidance. Let's see, it's open the top here. Got the runners that the blade runs on, the wheels. We'll check the tension of that. Blade might be a little bit loose, but I'm an amateur. I don't actually know. I've never played with a bandsaw, so we'll see what the guidance says it's supposed to be, and we'll get it into that tolerance. I've read that some of these smaller bandsaws, the 10-inch bandsaws, the half-inch, the third horsepower, people complain about power, and yes, they don't have as much power. But what I think some people fail to do is properly tension the blade, properly adjust these bearings, make sure everything's as rigid as possible, and they kind of find that the blade probably just has too much slack or something like that in it, so it doesn't give them the power and the cuts that they're hoping for. So one thing I'm hoping to address is making sure all that's done before I use it for the first time, and after I do that, we'll see. But some super simple knobs to close the doors, both the front, the top, and take off the warnings. Who needs those? Just kidding. We're gonna follow the warnings, follow the manual, make sure it's all set up good to go. Looks like adjust the camera down so you can see a little bit better. But basically it looks like down here, you got the desk port back here. It's got some ridges in there, probably to prevent major chips or something from going in your dust collection. Brush to clean the wheel and the belts as the blade goes around. We got our safety switch on off with the lock that you can pop out, so always nice. I've got 2 kids. They don't usually come in here, although my one's getting interested, so that shouldn't be a problem, but always nice to have the safety features with the kiddos around. So 2 easy to open and close knobs to open and get access in there. That's real nice. Right here on top, there's a hard, not for you guys to see, I'm not going to try to tip it over, but there's a keyhole slot for, it looks like, bringing the wheel up and down, tensioning it. You can see this whole mechanism in here behind the wheel attached to a bolt, so as you turn that, it's going to pull the wheel up or down and put a little more tension on this blade. So seems like it'll be pretty easy to at least do, and we will figure it out as we go how much I need to do that. The table will go in here. It adjusts from, it looks like about -5 degrees to about 50 degrees in tilt. So pretty good range. As someone who hasn't done this very much, I don't really see what I'm going to use the tilt for, but I'm sure there's plenty of uses for it, as some of you more experienced folks will know. And hopefully at some point I'll get to put a project in about that. So let me take you around to the back here so that you can see, without me having to turn it around, what we're dealing with. So dust ports down here. You've got your outboard motor. It's probably for adjusting the wheel. There's some smaller bolts and some set nuts there that will adjust that. Here we've got the table tilt with a little mechanism here to judge the angle. We'll see how accurate that is. It looks like it's got a little screw so you can adjust it. To do that, I'll put a level on it and we'll make sure that's all good. Little adjustment screw right there on top, probably to make sure the table's set flat at all times, has that support and all of that. And I'll have to read the manual because I'm not sure what some of these are for, but I'll learn. Okay, we're back. I decided that instead of troubling you with the tedious process of doing it all, I would do it, set it up, and then kind of go through how I did it just roughly, so you can see how fairly easy it was to do. I've never done something like this. Most of the tools that I have come assembled. I've had to make some minor adjustments to some stuff, but never something as robust as this for the most part. But it comes mostly assembled, you saw earlier. Mostly needing to get the table put on, the fence adjusted correctly, and the front rail, the guide rail for the fence, as well as adjusting some stuff. So I think the blade tension is all right for now. I'm gonna kind of just get a feel for it when I cut and see, since I don't really know what to look for. It's not moving a ton, but it's deflecting. I don't know. I don't want to over tighten it and break my first blade. I don't have the backup yet. So I'll get there, but I did adjust like the guides and go through some of the various parts of the saw, so that when I came back to talk to you all, I had a better idea what I was talking about. So the first thing was to install the table. I pulled it out. It was greased up really good. I wiped it down. I probably need to do it some more. There's still some on there, but I got the majority of it off. After I do it good, I'm probably going to put a good coat of paste wax on there to keep that top nice and slick. But basically, you just slide the table on from the back through the slot, making sure the blade doesn't get caught. And then there's 4 lock nuts and hex head bolts that go on from the underside. It said to use an adjustable wrench, which I did have on hand, but I found it was easier to just go ahead and do it with a socket wrench. I believe, yeah, I used a 10mm socket because it's in metric, and it was just a little bit easier to tighten things down a little bit faster. There was some stuff that was hard to get to, but I found that tilting the table and tightening it actually did the job. After you get the table on, there's a little set screw under here, hex head set screw, which is what will give you your zero. So I actually use these small Machinist Squares that I've got. I can put a link to them on in the description if you'd like. They're off Amazon. Came in a set of 4. They come in a couple different boxes. I have 2 really small ones inside, and I keep my 2 largest ones out here in the shed for some of these bigger things. But what I did was I just threw the Machinist Square right up there next to the blade. And I was actually very impressed. Right out of the box, it was almost dead on. I adjusted that set screw as far as like lining up the number on the tilt on the back. So I set the set screw until that was just perfect, and it was almost right on. So I just very small adjustment to the marker that I showed you on the back, the little yellow marker with a Phillips head screwdriver, and we were good to go. So I was actually pretty happy with that right out of the box. That made my life easier, not having to finick with that too much. So I did that. The next thing was to attach this front guide rail, which just uses some star head screws on the bottom, plastic screws with some washers. You just kind of slide it up, line it up. I will need to adjust it to make sure that the zero for the fence is right where the blade is. I didn't measure that out yet from blade to edge. And I just realized that that's something I'm not a big fan of. It's hard to tell on the fence. I'll get there exactly what the measurement is, because there's no arrow or marker on the front of the fence here to show you what measurement you're lined up with. But anyway, I'll make sure that's lined up. It's easy to attach, and then there's a bolt that goes right here that helps level the table because this is split, so it kind of just, there's a washer that flattens it out, keeps everything nice and tight. There is a miter slot, doesn't come with any sort of miter bar. I have to look. It looks like a fairly standard size, and my table saw one. It's actually really easy to access, so let me pop it out real quick, see if it fits. I have a rigid table saw. I actually think this is going to be too big. That's too big. So I'll get back to you on whether or not that is some sort of standard size and what kind of miter bar you can use there. That's something to consider. I don't know how much I plan on using the miter bar for exact cuts. I'll be freehanding a lot of things, so I'm not as worried about that. Freehanding and using the fence. And speaking of the fence, I use this larger Machinist Square. The fence comes loose. Like I said, it feels kind of like it's cheap. The locking mechanism isn't the most robust. The back doesn't feel like it's going to be that great. It uses a cam action to kind of lock it down, and it sits in this runner right here on the front of the guide rail. But I gotta tell you, once I got it to lock to the right tightness, got all that adjusted, which was pretty easy. You just kind of hold the back bolt in and twist it until when you lock, it's secure but not overly tight. And the sliding action on it, not the best. So that's something you kind of just have to, I'm gonna have to deal with. But when I locked that down, man, I threw this Machinist Square onto the front of the table, and it is square. I was very, very surprised at how square that was going to be for how cheap this kind of feels, and how it's up here. But impressed. That means they machined it fairly well. Square to the table, square to the blade. So that should be good. And again, for my purposes, I'm not looking for the most highly accurate tool. I was looking for something within a reasonable budget that fit my shop and my needs. So all things considered, I'm pretty happy with all that. So I went through, checked for a couple of adjustments. Like I said, I checked, the blade looks like it's going to track all right. I'll check that off camera. Shouldn't do it while it's running, but it's in the middle of the wheels right now, so I don't suspect too many problems there, but there is information for adjusting it. Like I said, there's a slot up here for adjusting the tension. It actually comes with a knob that just kind of sits in the slot up there. It's got these two pieces right here that fit into kind of like a locking spot. And the process for doing this requires some things inside and then tightening and tensioning it, which is why I didn't want to really do it right now. It's kind of late, and I'll get there. And it felt tight enough for now, so I think we're good. And then these adjustments were pretty easy to make. You loosen up this right here, just twist it loose, and that slides the guides back, and the manual tells you to put it about 1/16 of an inch behind the gullet of the blade. It was pretty much there anyway. I just made just a itty bitty adjustment. And then these two Allen key holes right here, which it came with, was part of the hardware. Loosen those up, and you can slide those in out until you're about 1/32 from the blade on both sides. And that's for the upper and the lower, which is under here. The lower is a little bit harder to do, just harder to access, but the guide adjustment closeness to the blade was exactly the same, using the Allen key, loosening them up, getting them in place, tightening them back down again. And it was pretty close on the front to back motion and underneath. It's not as easy to loosen. There's a bolt under there that you have to loosen with an adjustable wrench. I checked it out. It looks like it's in a good enough spot, so I'm not gonna mess with that and have to get under the table or adjust the table or anything. So that was pretty easy to do. Get some of these tools out of the way so that I can turn this around. Just show you some of the knobs I kind of didn't address in the first place, so you know what they do. So, yeah, like I said, very sturdy. Very happy with how sturdy it is. So, like I said, this knob up here, and there's a matching one underneath the table down here. These knobs are going to be how you access the wheels on the inside. This right here is the lock for the guide adjustment, of how high you can cut. And then this knob adjusts the thing. So if you loosen this, it loosens the mechanism, and then you just adjust this knob to bring to bring the guides up and down to adjust how deep of a cut you want. So if you're cutting something shorter, you're going to want to bring it down so the blade has less play. If you want to cut some of those bigger pieces, you can bring it all the way to the top and get that widest cut that you want. Wherever you get it, just lock that down, boom, good to go. This back here, this knob right here, has a wing nut and then the actual knob, and this is for tracking purposes. There's a whole process in which you can go about tracking the blade on the wheels. This is part of it. There's also some set bolts down here. There's a whole process outlined in the manual on how to do that. I'm not going to mess with that for now because it looks like it's in the center of the wheels. But if it comes loose or I have to replace the blade, that's something that might have to adjust along with the tension. And then the belt on the inside that actually drives the wheels from the motor, it was properly tight, but you can actually loosen. There's instructions for loosening the bolt up here and kind of giving the motor a little bit of play on the belt so that the belts are properly tensioned. That all seemed good to go out of the box. So generally speaking, I put it together, I slapped the pieces on, and the instructions were relatively clear on how to do it, and before I knew it, it was assembled. Everything's mostly square, probably going to be great for my purposes. Like I said, the miter slot, it looks like you've got 5, 9, so about 14 inches maybe from the miter bar over, but obviously the blade is what matters, how far away you are from the blade, and that's going to be a little over 9.5 inches. I believe the manual said 9 5/8 inches depth of cut from the throat here to this blade. So I'm pretty happy with what I've got, and I want to say something about looking for this and mentioning it being a high-end tool versus what you can get at the big box stores. You can get good tools at the big box stores. I have a rigid job site table saw. I have some Performax tools, which are pretty much Menards brand tools, and they have served their purpose as well. Obviously, you spend more and you get more out of it. I have a bunch of brushless Ryobi tools. One's right here in case I needed it to assemble. I've got one of their combo kits that include a router, driver, impact driver, drill. Very happy with them. I see no reason as a DIYer and a hobbyist to upgrade and to spend a little bit more money. So I have no problem with big box store brands, but you can tell when you're playing around with them what you're getting for the money. And if I was looking to go really cheap and this wouldn't have existed or been on sale, I would have gone with one of those. If I wanted to spend a little bit more and get a little bit more oomph and production value out of the product, I would have gone with something a little bit more expensive, like a Jet or a RIKON or something like that. So I happened to get lucky and find a little bit higher end branded saw for almost some of the prices of some of the cheaper saws. So I went with it. But I'm definitely happy with a lot of the tools that I have from the big box store, and no issues there. So I just wanted to kind of clear that up. But I think that's pretty much the overview of the saw. I plan on doing some test cuts with it, maybe releasing that as like a separate short video just to show you, demonstrate the saw. It's a little bit late, so I'll probably do one for me just because I'm excited to use it. But I'm in the shed. If it's loud, which it shouldn't be, that's kind of the benefit of having this bandsaw is opposed to using my miter saw for trimming up pen blanks from the lathe and things like that. This should cut a little bit quicker as far as setup time, and a little bit quieter when I'm working out here a little bit later. So I'll probably do a couple test cuts just for fun, maybe record those, and then I'll go through and see what I can resaw, see what I can trim up, and tell you guys how it feels from a total amateur standpoint. Okay, I ended the video, but I just had to come back. I turned it on for the first time off screen, and man, it is quiet. I have just not really used a bandsaw much, and I flipped that on. I'll turn it on right now. I don't have a special mic that I wear on me. This is literally my Sony camera. It's the microphone that's on that. It's not even a good camera. I should upgrade at some point if I'm going to continue these. It's just kind of what I had on hand. But I'll flip it on, and man, it is quiet. And I'll try to run some wood through it so that we can hear how loud it is to cut. But that is very nice for working out in a shop where I have to have little to no noise. That's it. I'm talking to you right now. You probably can't completely hear me, but it is, man, that is quiet and it's smooth. And I don't even have it bolted to good furniture. So turn it off. There is a spin down time from a safety perspective. Keep that in mind when you use a bandsaw. Lots of bandsaws don't have some sort of stop on them to stop the blade. So that ran for a good 5 seconds plus after I turned it off. So keep your hand away. Keep some on hand. So what I grabbed here was just a random crappy offcut from something I made with a jigsaw, which I'll have to use for something this big, but I'm hoping to make round cuts with this saw now. I've got a bunch of pallet wood sitting around I need to think of something to do with. So I grabbed a piece of pallet wood, probably some sort of oak would be my guess. I've got a piece of poplar. Let's see, the pine looks to be, it's probably about ½ inch, three quarters of an inch, close to it. ½ inch on the pallet wood. This is 3/4 poplar. This is about 3/4 inch Peruvian rosewood, which I used for a frame for my wife, a picture frame for my wife for our anniversary, and a piece of maple, hard maple, 3/4 inch thick. So we're gonna see how this tackles, just kind of some cross cuts through it. I'll tackle some resaws on some thicker stuff I've got some other time, and when I've got a better chance to set up. But let's just throw some of these through and see what happens. So, like I said, total noob at the video recording aspect. I hope that improves. Just wanted to adjust the camera a little bit, get a better angle so that I'm safer at the saw and so that you guys can see everything better. I'm going to move this fence a little bit out of the way just to give myself some room because I'm just going to be pushing this through just to see how it feels, see how it cuts. Let's go start with the pallet wood. Wow, that was super smooth. Again, I don't really have a great a gauge to go against, but I was really happy. I mean, effortlessly pushing that through there. I didn't want to bog the blade down too much. Didn't bog at all. I didn't want to put too much pressure on. I'll get a feel for it as I do more wood, but that went through this pretty hard wood, no problem. Like I said, about ½ inch thick. You can see the two pieces. The cut's pretty clean. This is a pretty crappy wood, so you know, take that as it is. Let's go to something even harder. Let's go to this piece of maple. It's shorter. Let's just see what the cut feels like with 3/4 inch maple. For the blade to stop, but man, wow. That's probably one of the harder woods I've got in this pile, and that was no problem. I took my time with it, and it went right through that. I am very, very pleased with how the power feels for my purposes. Like I said, I'm not going to be resawing anything real thick. If I wanted to feed something like this through and resaw it, I don't know, maybe it would come up with some problems. But we'll give it a test with some smaller pieces another time. Let's go through this Peruvian rosewood. Butter. Like butter. No problems there. I think anyone who has a shop this size, hobbyists like me, not doing anything super extraordinary as far as the woodworking community is concerned, would be happy with this saw. I don't have dust collection set up. We'll open up the bottom and check out how much dust is down there without dust collection. It should be firing some out the back a little bit, just from a pressure differential. I can see some on the back, but dust collection, there's not very much dust up here. They shouldn't make very much. It's drawing that dust down through, so I'm guessing there's going to be some inside the box here. But you know, I'll hook up the dust collection because that is kind of loud. I don't want to really run that here at night, and we'll see if that makes a difference next time. Poplar. Easy. I'm not even going to bother with the pine. It's going to go right through that. Not worried about that at all.